I'm gonna get up a post right now, and we're live, just so
Oh,
you know,
excellent.
already, just like
Hey,
that. And
how you doing?
I'm gonna take a photo of the live
Yeah, do that.
to make it like extra live.
Bam.
I don't even know if that's possible.
I was just
see.
wondering if you'd jumped on that whole social media thing. I'm just eyeballing my IG right now.
Bam. Going live once again.
Oh, you know what?
I
I'm
love this.
distracted by the Hoopers. They've got macarons up on their.
Ooh,
Oh yeah, I'm looking away. In fact, I'm shutting my IG down.
macarons are yummy.
Must not look. Their macarons are great, and you know I've had all the European ones and yada yada. And so, what's a problem with their macarons? And in the bag, each bag has different flavors. So I forget how many. I think there's 8 in the bag. Whatever, some sort of magical number.
Yep.
And I'll buy a bag with the intent of buying it, maybe having 1 or 2 maximum, and then riding back home and for the family. But sometimes I'm out there for a long time. And I do need fuel.
And they seem to disappear very quickly.
There has been at least one ride where I've pounded the whole bag, without a doubt.
There's been many times I've done that myself. Not particularly specifically with that stuff, but many times.
What's your go-to? What was your go-to?
Boston cream donuts. Those were
wow, dude.
Yeah, I know.
Could you not?
Yeah.
What was even going through your head?
That they were delicious. And
from where?
They're full of sugar. You know what? It never really mattered.
Oh, is that right? You didn't have a preference?
No, I honestly, it was, I love the custard.
You never
itself.
even reached connoisseur level.
No, it was such a bad, such a bad trait. Like,
that's terrible.
Oh, it was bad. It was
I had the same thing for a while with Miss Vicky's. I was just being lazy.
Oh, those are good though. Those are really good.
And the worst part was my fave at the time was sea salt and malt vinegar.
Oh.
And I could crush a family size bag because I was riding a lot. And my sport at the time was predominantly carb driven.
Of course.
So I could crush a freaking family size bag and look at the next bag and think, I can do that.
I could do that.
And the roof of my mouth was lit up.
Just destroyed.
Destroyed.
Oh man, yeah. You know, my favorite one of those ones was the I can't even remember the name of it now because it's been so long since I've had it. But they were the blue and white bag, and they were like the barbecue chips, but they weren't. I can't remember exactly what they were called. But one of the things I have to do this every once in a while, where if there's anything I really crave, I have to stop having them anymore.
Oh yeah.
Just
a
to
little
make
game
sure,
I play with myself.
Right? To say, you know what? No, I don't actually. I did this a little while ago with beer. I was sitting at home. I opened the fridge to go to get a beer. I realized it did not have any, and in my head, I immediately said, "Oh, I need to go get beer." And then I was like, "Do I need to get beer?" I don't think I do. And then I was like, "Okay, well, I guess." I'm just not going to get beer for a while. And so, 3, 4, 5, I can't even remember how long I just stopped drinking.
That's cool.
In general. And then.
And whatever.
Yeah.
It's not like if you have a beer tonight, you lost.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I actually have beer in the house. It's just I haven't put it in the fridge.
Right.
So I don't even think. And I'm like, whatever.
Whenever you do, you do. And whenever you crack a beer, if you do, then you do. And whatever. Yeah, it's not like you lost anything. You gained.
And I did because, again, you push the boundaries. You test yourself just a little bit. And, see what happens. Because I really enjoy the, the test. Am I capable of X? Let's see.
I do it with everything.
Yeah.
I mean, everything. In fact, we've got a tin. It's a big tin, big white tin. I could go and get it right now. It's in the kitchen. It's a really nice looking tin from the Hoopers. and it comes with 50 cookies inside, all their Christmas goodies. And I looked at that tin and I thought, I better get one of those before they don't have any left. And so I grabbed one, and it's been in the house, and I mean, there isn't a bad cookie in there.
Yeah.
And I'm actually not that much of a cookie guy. I'm into some of their other stuff.
Yeah.
But man, I had one of their chocolate chip cookies. Oh man, they're so good. I had one of those things, and then I was walking by, and I lifted up the lid just to kind of eyeball. I wonder what I'll have tomorrow. And the whole family was like, "Oh, Dad, you're going in for a second?" I'm like, "No, that's not how I play my game."
Just wanted to look at it. Window shop a little bit.
Because you know what? It's even harder because I know my game. I've been playing it too long. I'm in there to take a look to make it a bit harder. So I can do that. Dang. I already knew I couldn't.
Just wanted to rub it in just a little bit.
Just a little saltier.
A little bit. You know, it's actually, I put a post up from, I can never remember how to pronounce his name. I put it up online. He's the headmaster of the Shaolin Temple Europe. And he was talking about, getting out of bed, just immediately getting out of bed when the alarm goes off.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
And I was thinking about it more, I was thinking about it outside of the realm of just waking up. And one of the points you brought up was that the feeling of, oh, I don't really want to get out of bed, or, oh, this sucks, goes away.
Oh, for sure.
And it does with
it goes away
everything.
The moment you ignore it.
Right? When you're just like, yeah, well, and I don't know how many times I've gotten out of bed and like, or had the alarm go off and go, and without thinking about the fact that you don't want to get out of bed, you have to. That's why they set the alarm. And, like, you have stuff to do, and you're like, okay, all right.
Yeah, you consciously said it.
Yeah. And now you're just like, bang. And you get to a point where it still sucks, right?
Oh, yeah.
It sucks when the alarm goes off, but
for sure,
you got stuff to do, so you just get up and get doing it. But that applies to so many other things.
And it's not wrong to whine about it or complain about it, as long as you keep it to the right perspective, the right level.
Yeah.
There's a tasteful level of moaning. And it's actually not that big.
No.
I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, you can do a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But it really probably shouldn't go above a 1.
Yeah, I was going to say even at a 2, that would be a bit much.
2's a bit much. I would reserve a 2 for like extra moany sort of stuff. Where you set the alarm, not because that's what you want to do, but someone else forced you to do it. And you're getting into like frozen boots.
Yeah.
And all of the usual stuff that just, those layers of suck. Now I'm going to moan at about a number 2. Because anything beyond that is shifts the needle on what proper moaning is reserved for. And that's when it's like the hardcore bad, the super suck.
Yeah, I never got to the super suck. I got to some
think you
pretty
did.
good suck. Yeah, there was. I do remember there was, at one point I woke up and I had fallen asleep on my boot, or my elbow had fallen asleep on the toe of my boot. And I woke up and it was minus 20 something. And I get up and I go to put my foot in my boot, and it had frozen with the indent from my elbow. So I had my toes just like jammed into the front of the boot, and they were like, okay, everybody, we're going for a ruck march. Grab your... And you just, you get on with it. But that one sucked a lot.
See, I learned, one of the lessons I learned on boots is very early on when, and this wasn't too long after I bought my first bit of high-speed low drag that the Army never issued us. And that was a Helly Hansen Polypro shirt. And not long after that, I thought, wow, there's something to this high-tech gear. And so I started putting my eye on the first bivy sacks that came out that were made out of Gore-Tex. And I saved my money, like hard saved. And I bought one of the very early versions of a bivy sack, and it was like really poorly designed, especially for like the jobs that I wanted, which was I just started as a reconnaissance patrolman. And the zip, if you imagine sliding into the mummy bag, the zip kind of just went right across here. So like not ideal for a quick escape and evasion.
Yeah.
But I bought it nonetheless. And what it taught me to do was, of course, I cammed it up and whatnot, was to just climb straight in it with my boots on, laces undone a little bit. And if I couldn't do that, if I had the luxury of a little bit more kickback time, I'd take my boots off and just keep them in the toe bed of my bivy sack. And they were good to go in the morning or the night or whatever time I'd roll out of that thing. My body heat would have dried them out. And so that's what I did from that point on. My boots always stayed in the bag, either my bivy or my winter or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned that after.
You did.
Put
Okay.
your boots. Yeah. I think I was in basic.
Right.
Out in Farnham. But yeah, I remember I never made that mistake again. I never let my boots be anywhere near it. I could
That's right.
especially that would freeze. And I think it was also we had dug a cold sink, and we all had our mucklucks in the cold sink because we had just used them.
Yeah.
And my leather boots were up above, and I just I think I rolled over on them or something. But yeah, I did. I learned very quickly. That's a great point. Is to make sure your boots are in there with you so that they're warm and dry, and especially not frozen to something.
Farnham. I don't think I ever made it there.
No, I did basic. You would have done it in.
I went straight to Wainwright.
Oh, you went straight to Wainwright. Oh.
6 months battle school. No 3 months lessons on how to polish socks. I went straight to battle school right off Civvy Street. Day one was a guy right up in my grill.
See, and that's what I expected.
Like I'd never experienced before.
That's what I had expected of the whole entrance into the military. And I tell people now, it doesn't happen like you think it does from the movies, right? There's always that recruiter, you do the paperwork, and then all of a sudden you're in line in your underwear, and then all of a sudden you're, on a base. And it's that doesn't happen that way. And even my entrance into the military and my courses to get to my unit, I was unusually lucky at the speed of which it happened. But it went, I swore in December. I started my basic in January, and then I started my SQ in, I think it would have been May, somewhere in there, April, May. And then I started my threes course in June. And then I was in my unit by October, and I was starting my workup in January of 07. And then I was doing workup all through 07, left for Afghanistan in 08. It was, I churned through the machine.
Streamlined.
Yeah. And I know guys that sat on PAP platoons for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months waiting for courses.
So that's what has been tripping me out a little bit, because it's not super new news to me, but it's reasonably new news. Over the last couple of years, I've come to better understand it. Definitely over the last 12 months through all of the DMs that I'm getting from young guys. So kind of like you, perhaps, when I got into the process, I was given my letter of, you're now in the game. And within that month, I was climbing off that bus with long hair with that guy right up in my grill for 6 months of infantry battle school. Yeah. And I mean, I just thought that was normal. It wasn't normal, but I thought that's how the Army was processing everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now I understand there's guys out there, they're putting their name in the hat, and they're sitting on paperwork somewhere, upwards of 2 years. Mm-hmm. And it's difficult to hear how challenging it is to fill the spots that are required in the Canadian military based on recruitment lows, while at the same time, someone's sitting on their hands for a couple of years just wanted to cross the start line. Madness.
It was pretty crazy, and then the way it's broken up, it seemed so superfluous. The fact that I went to do 13 weeks of basic training at base A, and then I went to base B to do a 6-week Army qualification, and then I went for a move to another area of the same base to do another qualification, and it always seemed extra. It didn't really seem all that necessary. But
I do believe that the system is poorly structured, and then on top of that, perhaps poorly led. But structured, it's still like a really old school structure. It's an old school way of doing things. I mean, it hasn't really changed since I was in. And when I was in, it was old school. So what is it now? It's like a museum piece.
I was talking to an infantry buddy of mine. He's up in Alaska. He's an former American infantry. Super cool dude. We were chatting, and he was like, I don't think the war didn't last long enough for you guys to like filter merit back to higher echelons.
Mm.
And I think I agreed with him. I was like, yeah, that makes sense, because there's a lot of higher echelon leaders that have in the States that have risen through the ranks through not just knowing how to play the game, but through combat leadership and like being able to lead at the front, highest levels kind of deal. And I don't think we had that. I don't think there was enough time to get people to stay in long enough to be in leadership positions that learned the game the hard way. If you know what I mean.
There's an entire different aspect to it as well, and that is something that could change immediately. And it just doesn't change. I've never seen it change to the scale that it needs to change. And it could happen today, could have happened a year ago, could have happened 20, 30, 40, 70 years ago. And it kind of goes like this. Stop passing the buck. I mean, I talked about it today, in fact, when I was talking about banging that tree down with Bruce Lee, the 1-inch punch. I had it in my mind. I was going to knock that tree down. And of course, there were some dinosaur senior NCOs who weren't into the hard charging game. They were into the parade square game. They were into the game that didn't require a lot of hard effort and wanted to be your best. And it reflected poorly on them. It reflected poorly on the senior NCO community as a whole, I felt, because they weren't in the game for the right reasons. But more importantly, it was the lesson that they were passing down to their own troops who were like shaking their heads and not digging it. And so I never passed that buck. I'd like, if a guy came up on me and said, hey, blah, 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 I could look him in the eye and say, get with the program. And so, but there wasn't enough of that. You know, when these kind of things came up, everyone was keen to look away and kind of let it happen and let the shirkers keep shirking. Yeah. And it's the wrong lesson, because then it becomes institutional. And now someone who's trying to like, let's get after it, is looked at as almost an unconventional thinker, or looked at someone who is an outsider per se. Not just me, but a bunch of my young hard charging friends at the time who just wanted to make a change, like actually wanted to put the word combat in front of arms. Yeah. And so, but you know, it requires everybody to stop shirking. Yeah.
Yeah. To actually, and to look for the work, right? Yeah. Because it's easy enough to be like, oh yeah, no, we're doing things, like we're working, but you actually have to look for it. And I mean, I learned the hard way, because I when I started, I thought I was a hard charger, and
we all did
through my training, actually. And now that I was thinking about it while you were talking there, but the term keener was derogatory.
I know.
Right?
I was accused of being a keener. Yeah. Because I was doing my best.
Yeah. Because you're like, yeah, man, like I want to work, right? And I got some advice before I left for basic. My granddad gave me. He was in the Army back in the day, and he was like, "Don't volunteer for anything." And I was like, that always just like sat.
I mean,
poorly with me.
It's kind of good advice, as long as you're directing it towards stuff that is like completely irrelevant, such as parade square.
Yeah, but again, you know, I said last time, I actually enjoy drill. It's not so much that I like drill. I like the precision of it. It's why I like explosive breaching, because you're using...
But I'd rather be explosive breaching 100%, than parade squaring.
Absolutely, yeah.
That was the point. Yeah.
I
noticed you haven't sworn yet, by the way, so congratulations.
I appreciate that. I've made it 20 minutes. 5 minutes longer than last time, I think. Yeah. No, it's all good. I think the key thing there, and this is actually what I want to talk about anyway, when we were chatting earlier about going online, was self-reflection and how critical that is for not just, getting better at a skill, but getting better as a person within that skill. So, you were talking martial arts and, how it applies, and talking about Bruce Lee and all that stuff earlier on your live. I was like, where it all boils down to me, especially for martial arts, is the ability to be self-critical.
Yeah.
Because you can't, as you said, you can only hit a tree so many times and the tree is going to teach you, but you have to be willing to learn the lesson. Otherwise you
for sure
keep breaking that.
You've got to be able to interpret what's going on.
Yeah.
And not just on the real time, but over the long time.
Absolutely. I just recently, I pulled out my rifle and my pistol to do some transition work because I like to
Nice.
I like to knock the rust off every once in a while.
Yeah.
And I was never great with a pistol, but since I've started dry firing more regularly, I'm hitting my sights so much more often. And I started recording myself just to make sure that my draws were clean.
That's a good idea.
Make sure, and I don't need, I don't post it everywhere. I'm not like, ooh, look at how good I am, because I really don't care. But I like to be able to see and then reflect on it and go, okay, well, what happened there? What was it that caused me to do X, Y, and Z? So, I'll record myself pulling from my holster and it'll look a little weird and I'll bowl it a little bit and I'll come back up and wait, what happened there? Was I late on the beep? Was I not expecting it? What caused the grip to be improper in the first place?
So let me just see if I've got this right.
Okay.
So you're creating content in order to review it, in order to learn something, in order then to make a correction that maybe everyone could benefit from. But sometimes my headphones don't always work properly, so I'm just confirming that that's what's happening.
You are absolutely correct that is what's happening. I guess I could post it.
Or what you could do is put up another quote that nobody gains anything from.
Ooh, I could do that. I could put up another quote from Seneca this time and just be like, with no explanation whatsoever. Yeah.
Which of
and then
course
I can
is not
stand and stare at the
directed at
camera
you directly, not at you directly, at least not today. But I mean, for reals, you could take that content, just as I do with BJJ,
Yep.
From years back when I started putting up those goofy little videos that just, I wasn't real good, but I was engaged in the process. I was committed in humiliating myself on the internet to some degree, but also to keep it real. Because here's the thing that I've noticed, and here's the thing that you will notice, is someone's always watching. Mm-hmm. And whoever's watching is learning something from it. And if they don't learn something from it in the real time as they're watching it, what they will learn in time is the process where they will get to watch you evolve and owning the evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not putting stuff up, how did they ever get to see the process?
That's a good point. I was keeping the process for myself because I don't...
Very community-minded.
Well, I don't espouse to be a firearms expert. I don't.
You don't have to be, though.
And that's true. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Because to someone, you are.
That's good. Because I'm a step ahead of someone else.
Because they're still on day zero. And someone on day zero will, like me, this is what I do in anything that I'm starting off new on day zero or day -1 for that matter. I'll go out and I will look at what I have to do and what I could become. So I will study the best shooters in the world. And then I will study the process going backwards to understand what I'm going to be entering into on day zero. And so along the way, not only am I looking at the black belts of the world in whatever I'm looking at, but I'm also looking at a blue belt, a purple belt, a brown belt, and by the way, what it's going to look like for me is a white belt. And so you fit in somewhere on that spectrum, and someone out there is going to watch you, and something you're going to do is going to resonate with them, and they're going to think, check, that was helpful.
Yep.
And more to the point, if you ain't putting stuff up like that, it kind of makes it look like you're not doing anything. And sometimes some guys just want to know that the work's being done, because then they feel like they're not the only one out there dangling in the wind, working by themselves.
That is a very good point.
Do I need to continue? Have I made enough points?
You made that very clear. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that should be posted. No, you're absolutely right. And
okay,
on top of that, it will benefit me,
of course,
as well. I mean, right? Like
of course.
And well, this is the reason I bring that up is the fact that a lot of times we give of ourselves, right? Continually, we want to help and we want to spread it around and we want to. I see this a lot in the advocacy world, right? Where people are like, yeah, absolutely, call me anytime. I'm here to help. I'm here to help. I'm here to help. And what it leads to is giving of yourself continually, but not gaining anything from it other than, you're losing sleep, but you're feeling fulfilled because you're helping people.
Right.
But also like, you're not
you're just building, absorbing stress, but you're not getting
it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's not just about giving and saying, yeah, I'm here for the community, I'm here to serve, but I'm also serving myself. I'm also serving my own growth in not only the shooting world, but I could put a video up and someone like you or someone like
whoever
someone could randomly see it and just be like, oh, dude, yeah, you know what's going on is your wrist is a little
100%
whatever, right? And then I could go, yeah. So yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but more to the point, and it's not more to the point, but it's to continue on with the same point. The guy will remain nameless, but I was talking with a guy today. He asked me a question about cycling, and so what I said was, hey, don't even worry what I recommend. Here's what you should do. You should go to this ultracycling forum, these other forums, get a sense of things, ask a few questions, let them start helping you. You then refine the process with them. Now you're starting to feel like you're part of a community. They start digging on what you're putting out, and now you're part of the clan. And so instead of me helping you, which I could, help them help you to then you become part of them. And I think that's cool, man. I think that's a way to do good community stuff. And so by you putting up your video and then somebody out there who's a good shooter says, hey, Chance, you should think about just tucking your right elbow in a little bit closer to your right hip. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. And if it's not working for you, I've got another idea. Guess what? Now you're part of that guy's gang.
Yep.
It's the entanglement portion that sometimes isn't being done as well as it could be. And this very conversation that we're having right now is that way to start building entanglement.
That's a great point. And the more strings you have out there, the more you can entangle. So the more things you get involved in, the better it works. And also you don't want to become, let one thing become you, right? Yeah, that happens a lot. A lot of people, especially, occupations that involve most of your life, like the military, the police, the fire, whatever, even martial artists, fighters, things like that can let that become your entire life. And if you don't have anything else outside of that, what happens when you lose it? And then what?
I've gone through it myself.
Yeah.
A half dozen times. And it ain't easy. And there are ways that you can get through it. But, I was going to say I don't care who you are. But I've got to get better with my language. What I will say is pretty much everyone I know, anyone that I've ever met, I think it's fair to say that if you get into that situation where you lose your sense of who you are because maybe you're an athlete, but then you break your back or whatever, there's going to be a moment in your time where you're lost. And you in that moment when you've lost it, whatever it is, you either have tools beforehand to deal with those moments, or you better get used to the idea of you're going to have to go find some new tools.
Yep.
Because it's going to happen. It's happened to me enough times that I know it to be a real thing.
I had somebody tell me once that whatever it is will end at some point. So, if it's the military, if it's martial arts, if you're an athlete, if you're whatever. So let's just say someone's an athlete. Let's say you're a sprinter. There's a finite line where you're going to be competitive as a sprinter. There's going to be a point where you're like, I'm too old, too many injuries, too many, whatever there is at some point. Maybe I can't reach an Olympic level, whatever it is. That's going to happen. Whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the road.
I was racing as a world champion.
Yeah.
And I blew my ACL.
There you go. Done.
And there went that sport.
Yep.
Gone. And I'd been racing competitively for over a decade.
What happened?
Dude,
like you tore your ACL, okay?
Yeah.
Then what? From that point, walk us through it.
So, I had to have my little boo-boo moment where I was like really bummed out.
Did you get to a whining level of like 3 or 4?
Dude, I probably reached a 9. And it's not that I was like, it took a while for me to like get right with it.
Yeah.
Because it was, a lot of my identity at the time was tied to it. I was coaching it and doing it, and I was known as it, and I was it. And so, when that changed for me, I had to have my little moment where I I had to suck on my thumb for a little while, like have my little moment. And I don't know how long that lasted, but it lasted too long because I was being freaking lazy. And so not only lazy, like physically, having my little moment, but like mentally and emotionally, like it was a bummer, dude. But I could have got right with the program and moved through it and then got on with it, and but I just got a little lazy, and it probably lasted a little longer than it should have, maybe an extra couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I don't even know, but longer than it should have.
Yeah.
And so, but it took me realizing that I was being lazy about it, that I had to do that in order to like shake my head and get on with the program. So for me, there was a natural evolution of, this is a bummer. Now I'm being lazy. Now I've got to get on with it.
What did you change after that? Like, what was it that actually physically changed?
Well, a couple of things. One was I stayed in the game because I just decided I'm not going to accept my blown ACL. I'm going to continue doing BJJ, and I'm going to continue riding my single speed.
What?
So what? But what did change? And this is notable, and this was excellent for me, because I'd already started kind of not quite formalizing my BJJ game, but I'd already established that I like being aggressive in BJJ, and so I had a certain style, and I had to completely rejig my game because of that bad injury. And so then it took me a while to figure it out, to completely redesign a game that I was starting to feel pretty good about and start almost from scratch again. But through that process, it made me better. Yeah. It made me more exploratory, because, 7+ years later, I can look back on it and think, if I hadn't have blown my ACL, my BJJ would have been a lot different right now. And the BJJ that I was doing was the easy BJJ. It was the one that I was good at.
Yep. That's the tough one, man. Having to go against your grain.
Yeah.
The natural feel of how you want to play the game. And I think big guys have this, and almost, I can't say improportionate assessment, but you hear this a lot, right? Don't use strength. Don't power through a move. But at the same time, you have to be able to use those natural attributes.
It's a natural attribute, yeah.
And if, I'm a big, long, tall guy, so I like to pull people, and I like to extend people because I have the natural attribute for it, right?
Of course.
Telling someone to not use that seems extra. Now I understand as like when you're first learning.
Well, you've got to learn to
do the move
modulate
right.
it.
Yeah, and
but you shouldn't have to throw it in the dumpster.
No.
And it's my job to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually just, I was teaching a class earlier today, and we were talking about that next step. We got one of the guys I was working with, he's just about to get his 4th stripe on his white belt. He's kind of on the range of blue belt, and where he's sitting is in that range where you go, I know the moves. Now I need to put them together, right? So you have to.
He's not chaining things yet.
Yeah, and he's not quite at the gap of, as soon as you get the move or a move is happening, you're already like, okay, now I want that. Now I want that. Now I want that.
Right.
And so we were just working on him getting used to the fact that each one of those movements needs to be fluid into the next movement in order for it to work for the next movement. And I had to keep saying, I'm like, slow down.
Right.
Slow
is
down.
smooth, smooth is fast.
Relax, breathe, and I would stop him in mid movements, in transitions, and be like, are you tight anywhere right now? Right? Can you feel tense? Are you holding on? Are you latching on to me in any way? That kind of stuff.
But we all do as white belts.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. But I was like, and I was thinking about it, like, how awesome would it have been had I had somebody sitting there going like, I can feel how like tense your left leg is right now in your right shoulder. Bring it down, dude. and I had some great, the people that have been teaching me, and I'm not that far into it anyway, by any means, but people that were teaching me were great. But the key to having a really good teacher-instructor relationship is when what you say really connects with the other person, right?
For sure.
And you're not going to connect with everybody, or as an instructor, as a leader, you should do your best to connect with as many people in the best possible way as you can. I forgot where I was going with this whole point, but it leads into another great point, which is self-examination again is where it comes back to being able to really look at yourself under the harshest light without judging yourself, I think is the key.
I judge myself.
Really?
Yeah, I do. For sure. I assess myself, and I consider that to be the opening salvo. Assessing my performance, or assessing how I'm doing, or assessing what's going on. But then I get on with the critical analysis. And for me, it's I'm not interested in so much getting a pat on the back. I'm interested in kicking my ass. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I haven't done it as well as I should have. Sometimes I've been lazy. In fact, speaking of lazy, this whole thing that we're doing right now, this whole in front of a microphone thing, before Seb Lavoie Jedi mind tricked me, freaking ghost of Christmas past. Before that, I was being lazy. I was comfortable. I'll say that. I got to drink coffee, roast coffee, ride my bike, kick it back, watch the circus, shake my head, and then I made the mistake of looking at it more deeply.
Yep. I don't know if that's a mistake.
No, it wasn't a mistake. I'm making light of it. But before I decided to pull the trigger and get on with it, I was being lazy for sure. It's
like I was saying on the last live we did there, is that sometimes you hit those plateaus where you're like, I'm good to go. Like we're good to go, man. This is good. I'm happy here. And then you hit that. There's a point in that happiness where you're like, I could probably. And then you got to start climbing, right?
But the point you were making about coaches and how through coaching you should be able to connect with people in order to be a good coach, and then sometimes you can't. But I think you always can. But it just takes a lot of years to learn how to be able to do that with pretty much anyone. And if you're a new coach starting out, either on the mats or in whatever, it's your hit rate on a proper connection, a proper synchronicity with whoever it is that you're coaching, your hit rate is not high. You've got to learn how to do it. And one way that you can do it better than trying to do it in isolation is making sure you're teeing up with the people around you who have been in the game for a while. So like Julie Kelly is an example. I was on that live chat with her, coached her for 10 years, taught her the process. She understands the process. So I don't need to like follow up on, are you doing this right? Are you doing that right? Etc. All I need to be is here for when she needs to hit me with a question, say, hey, how did you do that? What am I going to do here? What do you think? And so that's how all of our games are raised. And by her asking for qualifying opinions, questions, ideas, of course, it makes me think deeper and richer and connect those other entanglements. And before you know it, I'm connecting Gray Man Dad with Yuri in Ukraine. And they're going to have a conversation about firearms. And legit, that's happening right now. So
that's wicked.
Entanglement, baby.
Yeah. And this is, had Seb not Jedi mind tricked you into getting into the thing, you would never been on my podcast. You would never, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
The whole thing.
And it is kind of hilarious when you can really stop and go, and you start untying all those little threads. And then you're like, how did that happen? Holy cow, all the way back here. Jeez, man. And yeah, that's the bonus. That one of the things also I learned this pretty early was you never learn how to do something really well until you have to teach it.
Yeah,
like you can do something to a very high skill, but until you learn how to teach it, man, you have to know each and every little synchrony. I remember went and saw my uncle for to get out on a horse. I hadn't been on a horse in many years because when I was in the Army, didn't really get a chance to get out there. And riding, like anything, is a perishable skill.
Sure.
So I went down there and I was like, can you give me some pointers? It's been a while. I want to be much more comfortable in the saddle than I am right now. And he was like, yeah, I don't know. I've never taught anybody how to ride a horse before.
Go ride a horse.
Yeah, exactly. He's just like, well, let's get on and we'll see what's what. And that's exactly what we did. We rode beside each other and he gave me little, oh yeah, keep your hips up a little bit. Okay, yeah, don't take the weight off your feet, that kind of stuff. Just
nice.
Little pieces to it. But afterwards he was like, I didn't even know I knew half of that. But he was able to assess it. And I mean, he's been riding a horse since he was like a grasshopper, right?
Right.
And it's not until you actually have to put those into words. All of that skill, all of that knowledge, and then you have to put that into words that somebody else will understand.
Yeah, it goes back to the win-win. I mean, him having to explain it to you, you win. Him learning how to communicate that and understanding how deeply he does or doesn't know a subject, he wins. It's always a win-win as long as there's two-way communication, which pretty much is the collective or the hope.
That's honestly, with what we've been getting in terms of response so far, I think this is going to be very effective for the collective because, I mean, we have so much knowledge all within each other. And we have this communication network that allows us to share said knowledge with each other. And it's being used, but is it being used enough? Is it being used properly? Is it being used to the highest efficiency rating? All that kind of stuff. It's hard to, I think we're going to be on the edge of it. I think the cusp.
Well, for sure. It's better than what is going on out there right now from what I see. And if there's a better way to do it, I'd like to know. Again, please let me know.
Yep.
I'm into helping whoever's doing it really well right now.
That's how I got started with everything was that I look how do I help? And like when I started getting into advocacy, it was because I wanted to help. I saw people out there that were not having a good time and I was like, well, I'm just sitting here. Well, here, let me ask you this question because we were talking about Bruce Lee earlier. And you post a lot of quotes from his book.
I have.
And
dude, it's not. I don't have all this stuff figured out like about 47 years ago.
I'm just gonna
when I figure it out.
Yeah.
you'll hear about it.
Okay.
And when you hear about it, if it's a good idea, then freaking rock on. And if it
I'm down with
sucks, it sucks.
So, tell me a little bit about your 1-inch punch right now. How is it? You got some rust on it right now, or is that something you still work on pretty regularly?
For sure, I've got rust on it. I mean, everything's rusty at my age. For sure I do. But last time I had to use it, I was teaching it to some kids. They were kickboxer type kids. And this is going back a handful of years ago. And, their punches, in my opinion, could use some help. And they didn't understand how the kinetic motions at a detailed enough level in order to kind of elevate the game of what they already had. So in order to teach them how to use all of their body, I decided to bring it right down to the electron microscope of focusing on the 1-inch punch. Mm-hmm. And, I was showing this to the kids, and some of them were like my height, like teenagers, 16, 17 years old.
You're not that tall, though, so.
I'm not. So, like, I'm 5'9" in a touch and 155 soaking wet. So,
there you go.
I've got it up right at their chest, and they're smiling like it ain't going to happen. And I'm not smiling, but I know it's going to happen. And it happens every single time. And I can pop a guy pretty hard from 1 inch away. And it's definitely going to move them. Their feet are going to move. And it's just a matter of whether I decide to knock them down or not. Unless they're fully braced, like in a full hard karate, deep stance. I'll move their upper body, though, and they'll know what's up. So when I was doing it with these kids, and I hadn't done it for some time before that, it's like riding a bike to me. Now, I may not be 100%, but I can still ride a freaking bike pretty well, and I can still do a 1-inch punch better than most.
Yeah. So I know you still do BJJ, but you said and I know you've done combatives within the Army. What were you studying pre-military? Because there wasn't a lot back then, especially you're talking northern Alberta.
Correct.
There's not a lot of options.
Correct.
For martial arts up there.
My dad was judo, so that's what I started with. And then as soon as I graduated high school, I was into almost a year before I joined the military, full year. I was living in Nanaimo, and I started a Tamari, karate, and kickboxing. So it was Shotokan karate one night, and then the other night was American freestyle kickboxing. And I went every single night. Yeah. And in fact, it was after almost a full year of every night training, and I'd go in on the weekends as well, mop a floor and work with the sensei. Yeah. And
get your free private in there while you're putting sweat equity down.
Whatever it takes. Yeah. Whatever it, scrub the toilet on it. Yeah. And so it was towards the end of that when that goofy character challenged me to a fight to the death up on top of a hill. Did you? I don't know if you heard that story.
I don't think I've ever heard that story.
Dude,
no.
Okay, this is a crazy little story. I'll tell it really quick.
I want to get into it, man. This sounds awesome. Duel to the death on top of a hill. Like, this is
for reals.
This is
not even making it up. And there's going to be a point here when you don't believe it.
Okay. Let's see it.
So I'm near the end of a full year of training. Now, I'm not going to say I was good, but I wasn't day zero. But I was training every night for nearly a full year, and on the
300
weekends.
plus days. That's pretty good
for sure. And I was getting after it. Yeah. And so towards the end of that, just before I went off to the Army, I'm in downtown Nanaimo, and there's this little square. And I'm just kind of hanging out. I think I was eating something or whatever. And this guy walks up to me, and I'm wearing a T-shirt that at the time said Tamari, Karate, and Kickboxing. And he walks up to me, he says, and I'm going to paraphrase some stuff here. He says, are you into martial arts? And I said, yeah. He said, do you train with them? And I said, yeah, I do. And he said, I train Kung Fu. And I said, cool. And he said, my style can beat your style. I was like, what? I just didn't want to those, man. You know, I've just got off my motorbike. I've got greasy long hair. I'm doing that thing. And like, I just want to learn martial arts, man. I don't want to have an argument about your Kung Fu. Yeah. But he's like right up in my grill. And he says, and, you know, I'm going to keep the story short. He challenges me to a duel. And so he sets the time and place, and it's up on a hill up in Nanaimo. I'm like, okay, see you there. And I walk. straight up, get on my motorbike. And I had a girlfriend at the time. She's on the motorbike. And I show up. I'm in my leather jacket, jeans, T-shirt, Tamari Karate and Kickboxing T-shirt, I think it was.
This is outrageous.
And those kind of, what were they, Adidas. Low ankle height Adidas, old school with the stripes on them, leather shoes, eh? So that's right, baby. And so I pull up on my motorbike, put the kickstand down, and I see him off in the distance. So I start walking, towards him, and he's walking to me, and we meet right at the top of the hill. This is where it gets wacky. You're not going to believe it. This dude is in full gear. He's got all the kung fu on. To include the big white silk sash that's around his waistband and dangling off his hip. He's got the fancy buttons.
With the turtle buttons, yeah.
He's got exactly. And he's got the white socks with the low black shoes.
Yep.
He's rigged for bear. And I'm like, wow.
With the long hair and the jeans.
Dude, for
cowboying
real.
it up.
It was a clash of worlds.
Oh, man.
And so I said, okay, what's up? And he says, we're going to duel to the death. That's the part I'm not making up. And I said, what? I said, no, really, what's the rule set? And he said, today will be the day that the best style is decided. And he turns around and walks away from me. And I'm like, oh, it's on. So I take my leather jacket off, throw it on the ground, and I face him. And he starts his kung fu. He gets the whole thing going. All the stances, all the poses, all the tiger stuff.
Yep.
He did it all. It was
That's amazing.
Like right out of David Carradine, Kwai Chan Kane from Kung Fu. I got the full Monty.
Wow.
And so this was me back in the day.
Yeah.
And I let him do his last pose. And then I did this. And I kicked him right upside the head.
Yep.
I kicked him so hard he was standing 1 second. The next second he was laying flat on the ground. And this is what I will say, because this is what I said in a live chat maybe a couple of weeks ago or whatever, when I was telling the story. This is how that happened. I only had a full year of Shotokan and American freestyle kickboxing. Mm-hmm. But what I also had for a decade prior was I played a lot of indoor and outdoor soccer. And I had fast feet and I kicked hard. So when I kicked that guy upside of the head, he didn't even know I nearly kicked his head into the Nanaimo Harbor.
Yeah.
And so as he was laying on the ground, I got over top of him and I looked down and I said, is it still to the death? And I walked back to the motorbike and off I went. Never saw him again.
Oh, man, that needs to be a movie. Because the whole time I'm hearing the cymbals. Oh, man.
I've never, ever seen anything like it in real life.
That was outstanding. That is an 80s movie like I have never even... Literally in the 80s, too, right? That's what, mid-80s, 85, 86, somewhere in there?
And the girlfriend at the time didn't even get off the bike.
That must have been the most epic entrance.
Dude, it was epic.
Exit, just...
The only way it could have been better is if there was a F-16 Tomcat or whatever, Hornet or whatever flying off in the background.
Yeah. Oh, man. With the shockwave.
Feet still on the pegs.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I just grabbed my leather jacket as I was walking back to the bike, shaking my head, and wow, and off I went.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like it.
Completely
disillusional. I mean, so disillusioned with how things work. I mean, that dude thought he was going to tiger crane me into parallel universe or something. He figured he was Doctor Strange.
Man, I actually studied Shaolin Wushu for 2 years, and it is a really great art, and it actually plays into my BJJ a little bit. But
100%, me too.
and the I never understood the whole mine is better than yours thing either. That it's like, what does it matter, right? We'll figure that out on a competition. Like, you want to go to a mat, okay, we'll go to a mat, we'll figure it out. But it's not like I don't gain any pride by saying I studied X or Y or Z.
I mean, nowadays I don't even care. In fact, if someone wanted that conversation to start going off, unless they interest me as a person, I'm just going to walk away.
Yeah.
But back in the day, I had a certain drive. And if you came up on me and said, whatever,
Yeah.
I was like, I'll see you there.
Yeah, it's on. Let's do this. Yeah. My brother, he's a 3rd degree black belt in Taekwondo, and I did a little bit with him through the years. And when I say a little bit, I was his kicking dummy for many years. But I got really fast hands on that head block, and that has saved me more times than you can count. just out of nowhere, wham! Like, okay, we're good. And but again, these, I think the benefits outside of the physical ones and the spiritual ones that you can get from martial arts, I think what really helps the most, especially for young men, is it's just an outlet.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much stuff going on in the head of a 17, 18, whatever, of a young man, young woman. It just, sometimes you need that physical outlet. You just have to get it out. And I think that was one of the major benefits for me from martial arts growing up, was I had that outlet, that physical one that I could actually put all that energy into. Whereas there were a lot of guys I knew that didn't have that, and they
manifested in a negative way.
Very much so, yeah.
But the other part to it is I also needed that as well.
Yeah.
But more to the point, and what I needed much more than an actual outlet was the ability to feel like I could start controlling the world around me a bit more. I wanted to feel like more in control, not I was being controlled. And the more I leveled up, the more I felt like, and it's kind of what I've said in the past, that, the more you level up, the more you run the game, the more easy it is to run the game. And so when I was a young buck and I didn't have many tools and I had almost next to no skills, you're a victim of the world. And there's a lot of guys, grown men, 40, 50 years old, who are victims to the world right now because they don't feel like they don't have enough control of the world around them. And so they start feeling victimized, and it's because they haven't started creating the tools to kind of flip the script on that and start enabling themselves to run it the way they like to run it, rather than feeling like they're, a leaf in the wind getting blown willy-nilly, and it's the wrong way to think.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're feeling blown around, like if you feel like you can't put your feet down, you can't hold on to anything, then you're gonna start lashing out at stuff, right?
For sure,
matter what it is.
For sure, and it's a negative loop.
It really is, and I remember being there for many years as a young man, not really understanding what I was actually capable of. I think that was a big one, was that there was always this, I don't know, maybe a sense of security in that, like, when you're young, you're like, nothing bad's going to happen to me, right? Bad stuff happens. It's not going to be me.
Right.
That leads you down pathways that aren't always great. And when
yeah, for sure.
When you start get punched in the face and you start realizing, like, oh, yeah, bad things do happen. And they can happen to me very quickly.
Yeah,
and I got that lesson early. Like, I got hit by a car when I was 13. And I got clipped good and tore a bunch of ligaments in my knees. And I broke the windshield with my forehead. All good stuff. But it showed me, like, as a 13-year-old, guess what, bud? You can get taken out anytime. And so I was like, and it changed the way I looked at the way I wanted to do stuff, and I wanted to get more, wanted to train more, I wanted to do more, I wanted to be more physically capable. It's just in case, because stuff does happen.
Well, it's going to happen to everyone. It's just a matter of whether you get in front of it or you deal with it after the fact.
Yeah.
But it's coming. If you haven't experienced it before, it's coming.
Yep, it is definitely coming. It doesn't matter, I can't remember where I heard this, but it's more along the lines of like, if you, the things that you hold dear, if you can't let those things go, then when they are gone, they will leave giant friggin' holes in your life. Same thing when you lose your identity as a soldier, as a coach, as a performer, as a whatever it is, right? When you lose that, it's devastating, and you can go up the suck meter pretty fast if you let yourself. But
with no fallback plan. And so, what is the fallback plan? If you've never had a fallback plan before, get one, and it would look like finding something that stokes you. Yeah. And something that, whatever that is, engage in it. And then when you've engaged in it for a week or two and realize that, hey, I want to go down the rabbit hole on this, start looking for a plan B.
Yeah.
Because eventually, the one that you're stoked about, that you're 2 weeks in, might lead to 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Things change. Things blow up. Now you're looking at your plan B. Have a plan B.
Yeah. And I mean, it could be, I think a lot of times it's not recognized throughout your life where this stuff can happen too, because it's not just about physical calamities, right?
Or
loss of stuff, is that you might move, right? And that now all the stuff that you were comfortable with, that you were like, oh yeah, I got my gym here and I got this school and now I got to work with these guys and so on. So you're in a totally different area, new team, new people, new job, new whatever. Begin step one.
Do you know what doesn't change though? In that instance, in the you don't change. That's cool. I dig that. That's a good observation. But you know what else doesn't change when you have to bounce across to wherever?
I would say the
-collective.ca. That's always going to be there.
That's always going to be there. It's going to have lots of videos and stuff of us chit-chatting to each other and other people about this stuff, because the tools are here, the experience is available, and we're going to talk about it. So make sure you go over to the -collective.ca. Make sure you get over there. There's going to be merch eventually. Learn, grow. But
the truth of it is, it's just like I was discussing with the individual about ultracycling forums. Go get involved in that hobby or whatever.
Yeah.
Start building a cool relationship with a new clan, and clans like the one that we're trying to start up, or just a way to interact with people that starts deeply entangling you in several communities so that you become more holistic in the process.
Yep. I could not agree more. And this is, for the collective, by the collective, this is what we are.
For sure. Merch.
There you go. So that's a hat right there. I'm working on it. We're going to get some stuff going pretty soon here. Anyway, I think another great place to call it for the night. Thank you again for chatting with me. I think,
dude, thanks for hanging out. It's always fun.
My pleasure.
As I said, I didn't thank you enough last time in the first live chat. I failed to pass on the true sentiment of the evening, which was, it was awesome hanging out with you, dude.
I'm a pretty amazing guy. What can I say?
You are.
It's always my pleasure chatting with you, brother. It really is. I get to. You're one of the few guys that challenges me. And
that's what I like to do.
I love it. I have many circles, and every one of those circles has different levels to the game, as you would say. And this circle is the That's my next level circle. Guys that like prod me like, yeah, I don't know about
I
that
have a
one.
character flaw. It's called irritating people.
Something to work on then, perhaps. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you
right.
next time. Chimo.
Cheers, pal. All right.